Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. I'm talking with Colin McIntosh. Hey, Colin, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time and sharing, and congratulations on your business. You're CEO and founder of Sheets and Giggles. And so where'd you get that name?
It just hit me. I wrote a business plan for a bed sheets company. I think a lot of founders are a little neurotic, and they've written business plans for a lot of companies they'll never start. I've written probably 50 business plans in the last, 5 or 6 years. And I wrote one for Sheets Company. And I always say, what's a funny name for blank? And it just hit me like a lightning rod, Sheets and Giggles. And that was actually the moment I became obsessed with the idea of a funny brand in a boring big space. And because there was nobody in the sheets industry doing anything interesting. And so it kind of just really stuck out to me as a unique opportunity.
Yeah, and a funny brand in a boring space.
Yeah.
That might hold some potential for a lot of businesses.
Well, that's the thing is I've got a lot of domains. If anybody wants any pun-based domains, I've got sunglasseshalffull.com, romanhemperor.com for a hemp business, if anybody wants a CBD business. But a lot, I think that you're right. They're like, if you can be funny selling carpet or funny selling, there's a lot of spaces that are left that are, very boring, very, very, very terrible spaces. So, yeah.
Well, you've done a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah.
You're like 32 now, is that right?
Sorry, I'm 32, yes.
Yeah, 32. And grew up in South Florida, graduated from Emory University's business school. And so you've been successful enough to where they have you come back and speak and teach an entrepreneur class. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I teach the entrepreneurship class. I take over as a guest lecturer, usually once a semester at Goizueta Business School at Emory. And the professor there, Andrea Hershatter, she's the dean of the business school, and she and I have become good friends over the years. Me traveling back and doing the class once a semester for her.
And so, what? Let's get into that a little later. But your company, let's make sure we get that on there. Founded in 2017, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so revenue in 2021 was what? Because we get our thing off LinkedIn and everything, and they're usually wildly inaccurate. So
yeah, is it okay if I'm not overly specific, just from a competitive standpoint?
Yeah.
So the timeline that I like to share is we founded the company in September 2017. Sorry, October 2017. We shipped our first box in October 2018, and November 2020, so 2 years after we shipped our first box, we had our first 7-figure sales month. So that was two
sales month.
Yeah. So that's kind of the timeline I like to share. And then 2021, we've grown, we more than doubled from 2020. And now at the Inc. 5000, we were just ranked the 309th fastest growing company in the US. Which is crazy to me that a bed sheets company should be anywhere on that list. But it was really a really cool honor to be named 309 on that list.
Yeah, congratulations. And
thank you.
You've gotten all kind of awards. And how did you get? Yeah.
My fiance built this shelf behind me for all the, I have some real awards and then I have some fake awards. The real one, I'm very proud of, most influential Gen XYZ person in Colorado, which is cool. Small business awards for the Denver Business Journal we did $40,000 in COVID-19 donations in 2020. We got an award for that, which is really cool. I also have one from Techstars, which is the accelerator we went through. and it's a little tongue in cheek. It's most bed sheets ever sold by a Techstars company, which is,
They had to make up an award. Yeah.
one of one, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
they don't let a lot of bed sheets companies into the accelerators. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
But talk about the first one you were talking about, the most influential.
Gen XYZ. Yeah. So it was, I'm top 25 according to the Denver Business Journal, which is really cool. Great organization. I'm top 25 most influential Gen XYZ professionals in Colorado, which is like a funny like string of qualifiers. Like it's not that big of a deal, but also when I think about it, like I'm like, that's cool. Like that means that, I'm 32 and people like what I'm doing and like what I have to say and can make an impact in my state. And we've donated over $100,000 to charity in the last 3 years. A lot of that in Colorado. And it's it's great to be able to see just get that recognition. Sometimes it shows you're on the right path.
And so talk about how would you be influencing people through your just social media? Or are you speaking a lot?
No, it's actually interesting. I'm not a big social guy. I don't do a ton of, I do a little bit of Twitter. I do a little bit of Instagram, but I don't do like the whole, like my social media is not like my professional persona. Like my social media is my personal persona, because I don't, and I don't really have a difference between those two, to be totally honest with you, but I don't like the whole social influencer atmosphere. I think it's very fake. I think it's very profit driven. Like people are giving tips that I think are like somewhat obvious a lot of the time. And
Right.
I don't want to be that guy that's like 7 ways to like wake up as a lion on a Monday morning. Like I'm like,
Right.
that's like, I hate that stuff. So for me, it's actually more of like, I'm part of Good Business Colorado, which is a group of progressive business owners that lobbies for legislation that helps small businesses in Colorado. So I will go to the Capitol and I'll lobby, our state reps for legislation that I think is important for small businesses. I will work with both Republicans in the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, who I'm playing golf with next week in the tournament, as well as, work with House Speaker Alex Garnett, who's a Democrat, and, try to get a more equitable business landscape for startups and small businesses in Colorado. And then, yeah, I do tweet and I do put a lot of thoughts out there on LinkedIn and on Twitter, just about whatever might be something interesting that I think is worth discussing on a week or maybe a topical matter. So it's kind of a mix of a lot. And then I think our donations and leading by example, we did a big Earth Day event this year in April with Women in Sustainability, which is a big Colorado sustainability group. And that was headlined by the co-writer of Don't Look Up, a guy named David Sirota, who's based in Denver. And his wife is a Colorado state rep as well, Emily Sirota. So bringing these people together for these events, throwing our company name behind things that we think are important and good, and then fostering discussion and doing donation drives is really, that's the way I'd sum it up, I guess, is a lot of different things all at once.
Okay. And talk about how did you come out, and before you started this company, you've written 50 business plans. What were you doing?
Maybe 30. It probably feels like 50, but they're all in Google Drive somewhere.
Yeah. And so was this just ideas you had? For those of you who are sick and tired of fooling around and are dead serious about wanting to move up fast, I've got something especially for you. I've combined the best insights from over 40 years in business and making $70 million in income and compressed them into a free webinar. That's right, it's a free resource. If you want to find out exactly what the concepts are that I use in coaching million-dollar earners, register now at WeidelOnWinning.com. You'll discover the 5-part framework used by so many to reach their financial, personal, and professional goals. You can find that link in this episode's show notes.
Yeah, so a lot, I think you're probably the same way. I bet you have 1,000 business ideas, like, and I think most founders have a thing on their phone that's a notepad that says business ideas, and they just every time one comes up, they write it down. I take it a little bit further. I try to sit down and I write a business plan whenever I have an idea. And if I can't build like a compelling 2-page plan, I'll just kind of trash it. But if I can, I'll usually buy a domain. I'll get the social channels, and I'll kind of park it for myself in case that there's any future prospects there. Or I'll share it with, like, I do mentorship in the downtown Denver Commons, which is like a group of 10 entrepreneurs every quarter. They get free mentorship and training, and I mentor at Techstars Boulder as well. So I'll give a lot of free business ideas to people. If they want to start a business, I'm like, hey, I've got a business plan and a business idea here if you want to start this company for yourself. So I think Sheets and Giggles is just one of those ideas that took on a life of its own. It became overwhelming for me to think about having this incredible lightning rod of a brand and not starting it. So that was kind of I couldn't look away. And so I ended up doing a crowdfunding campaign in May 2018. So about 6 months after I founded the business, and we raised $300,000 in 30 days for bedsheet pre-orders, which is crazy. Like, who would give money to a company to wait 6 months for bed sheets? But thousands of people did. And that was when I knew we had lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, but what was your pitch? You're right. The sheet business, you had these brands, Bolin and whatever. And, very sincerely, 85 presidents sleep on these sheets, and, they're fine.
They stopped running those ads for a few years.
Well, I'm sure they're wonderful people, but the thing is, the lead in just caught me. It's just like, Barbie and I went out and we could, get some sheets one weekend, and there was just no good sheets out there. It's like, where did you look?
No, okay. I'm so glad you brought that up, Larry, because they had the founder of Brooklyn, and who I respect the business they've built. Like, don't get me wrong, but they had him on How I Built This on that podcast, and he was like, yeah, we stayed in this hotel in Las Vegas, and the sheets were incredible. And then we looked up how much money they cost, and we were like, oh my gosh, $400. There has to be a better way. And so and I'm like, that's great that you did not do that. Like, that is like one of the most, so like, I think that all these founder stories are made up in a lab of like a relatable story that people, so for me, I swear to God, this is how it happened. I was watching War Dogs with Miles Teller and Jonah Hill, and Miles Teller's character is selling sheets out of the back of his pickup truck in the beginning of the movie. And the retirement homes, they all say F off, like, we don't need your sheets, and he ends up having to burn his inventory. And this is 5 years ago now, I turned to my ex-girlfriend, and I said, this is ridiculous. He bought all this inventory. He didn't do a go-to-market plan. He has no idea who his core demographic is. His pricing strategy is terrible. You know what? Pause the movie. And that was the night I wrote a business plan for a bed sheets company. And then I said, what's a funny name? Sheets and Giggles. And I bought all the domains. I bought sheetsgiggles.com, at Sheets Giggles on Twitter and Instagram and everything. And I think 3 months after that, I was laid off from my last job at 1 p.m. on a Monday. And I remember I went out to the baseball game that night with my coworkers who had all just gotten fired alongside me. And they said, what are you going to do next? And I told them, I said, I've got this idea for a company called Sheets and Giggles, and it sells sustainable bed sheets. And they all looked at me like I was actually insane. Like I had lost my mind, which, to be fair, maybe I had a little bit, but yeah. So that's my founder story. And it's one of the dumbest founder stories you'll ever hear in your life. I was watching a 6 out of 10 IMDb movie and changed my whole life. So
well, I think you're right. These founder stories do come out of a lab, and they remind me like the Alaskan TV reality stories, in the sense, like, a founder story is going to get to the point where they say, and we said to ourselves, there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be a better way. And I'm like, so actually, if you go on our about page on sheetsgiggles.com/about, we have all these fake stories for me. Right. One of them is I was in prison and I was trying to break out of my jail cell but the cotton sheets that they gave us in the prison cells, just the tensile strength wasn't strong enough, and I couldn't fasten a rope to climb out of my tower. And I thought there has to be a better way.
Has to be.
And we've got a few of those.
It's
So
kind of like the Alaskan reality show. They all are going to get to the point where somewhere during the half hour, someone looks with great, the camera zooms in, right? And if we don't get kill a moose or whatever, or catch a pile of fish, we only have a couple of months here. We could starve this winter. It's just like, we've never heard that idea. It's like, the summers are short in Alaska. Wow, that's nice information.
I feel like, and like reality imitates art, where like they have these branding meetings and it's always like some direct to consumer brand. Like, and the other thing about this, Larry, is like the missions of all these brands. Like,
right.
Like, look, we sell bed sheets on the internet. They're sustainable. We're proud of the product. It's phenomenal. Like, it's the best sheets you'll ever own. Don't get me wrong. And we donate $100,000 to charity in our first 3 years of operation. Very proud of that. We do good in the world, right? But at the end of the day, we sell bed sheets on the internet. The period, end of story. That's who we are, and doesn't need to be any loftier than that. And my whole team has bought into that as like, that's what we do. Be proud of it. Own it. Whereas every other consumer brand, like, we're changing the way that people approach their personal hygiene. Like, no, you sell a toothbrush on the internet. Like, we're changing the way that cultures interact with one another. No, you sell a suitcase on the internet. Like, don't where do they teach these people these crazy like ways to communicate with people? And I think that like people's authenticity meters are so strong in 2022. Like, and it's on all of these consumer brands, is like, it drives me nuts. So, like, what you see is what you get with us. And I think that that's been really successful for us.
Yeah. And it's the same way in the art world. It's like, you go in and somebody's got this piece of crap in the wall, and then somebody else is trying to sell it. It's like, he went in there and he's, taking a stand against, the injustice in the world. It's about, how women have fought and been underpaid for all these things, but this symbolizes some kind of crap. It's just like
some struggle in this painting, and it's like, no, it's a nice painting. Like, it's
no,
like, it's
no,
okay.
Most of the time it's a piece of crap, but they're just
sure.
to talk you into like, with this profound changing how painting will be done and artwork and for the coming generations. It's like, shut up, it's ugly.
It's really a commentary on the Turkish genocide of like, it's like, it's just, no, it's a painting. Like,
right.
It's
a painting. If you like it, buy it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I'm going to hit you one last time on this. You get an idea for, maybe this is if it's a long story, just tell me, and then we'll do it on another episode.
Okay, sure.
How do you go from a guy watching Netflix or something, and then all of a sudden you become the sheet king, like the pillow, like the pillow king.
The My Pillow guy.
Yeah, My Pillow.
Well, I get that comparison a lot, and it is not the most flattering comparison in the world.
Well, you're really going to get it when you run for president. Now,
that's the thing. But the thing, I'll do the beard. He's got the mustache, and we'll clash a little bit. I'm like the bizarro world My Pillow guy. I think that the answer is just neuroticism, like, in the sense of like, you started a company, like you work 16-hour days, 7 days a week for 2 years, right? Getting a company off the ground
until
you shake every hand. You say yes to every single thing. You fly to New York on a red eye. You meet manufacturers. You go to India. They're all these things you can do. So I think there's a great quote, I think it's by Bill Gates, and it's, people overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10. And I think that if you're working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, what you can do in 2 years is really incredible. And so Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like just a healthy amount of neuroticism of trying a bunch of different things, failing, um, and treating people the way that you want to be treated. I think is always the key for me of like, why do our customers love us? Is because we treat them like human beings, and we don't treat them like wallets with mouths. And so yeah, I mean that's the short answer, but there's a lot of yada 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 in there of how you go from 0 to 7-figure months in 2 years, you know.
Thanks so much, Colin. Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.